Are you going to apologize to the mother or not?
I don't apologize for success.
You don't apologize for putting her son's life in danger and for putting the mission in jeopardy. Well, that's really disappointing.
In a gripping congressional hearing, the life of an American pilot hung in the balance after classified information was leaked. The Secretary of Defense, under intense pressure, was asked to apologize for putting the mission and the pilot at risk. But instead of taking responsibility, he refused, leaving the mother of the endangered soldier in disbelief. As the room watched in stunned silence, Congressman Alexander Vindman demanded accountability, calling for the resignation of the Secretary of Defense. What followed exposed a dangerous lack of leadership and a military unprepared for the threats looming on the horizon.
A very large percentage, and we're studying that conflict closely to understand
I hope so.
that fact.
The heart of the confrontation stemmed from the mother of an F-18 pilot who had been involved in a dangerous mission over the Red Sea in Yemen. She expressed her concerns about classified information being shared in a private, unsecured chat, putting her son's life at risk. Vindman, representing the voice of the concerned mother, asked the secretary point-blank whether he intended to apologize for his actions. However, the response from the secretary was not one of accountability. The Secretary of Defense, despite being pressed on the matter, refused to apologize for what had occurred. He defended the success of the mission, praising the pilot's work, but stopped short of acknowledging any wrongdoing in relation to the leaked information. His refusal to apologize or accept any responsibility for the potential risks involved in exposing classified details left many in the room stunned. The absence of a simple apology, which many expected, reflected a deeper issue of accountability within the highest levels of military leadership. Vindman, a decorated military officer, didn't hold back. His criticism centered on the lack of operational security ops displayed, a standard which every soldier, even privates, are trained to uphold. He emphasized that this incident was not just a lapse in judgment, but a failure of leadership. Vindman's frustration was palpable, and he didn't stop at the lack of apology. He questioned whether accountability within the Pentagon truly extended to the highest echelons of command. To him, the secretary's actions, or lack thereof, seemed to undermine the trust and integrity of the military leadership. The congressman's demands for accountability were not based on emotional pleas, but rather on the belief that those in positions of power must be held to the same standards as the soldiers they lead. He urged the secretary to step down, stating that the mother of the pilot who had just seen her son risk his life had made it clear that she wanted the secretary gone. The suggestion of resignation was a call for a higher moral standard, one that would place the safety and integrity of military personnel above all else. At the same time, this clash over accountability revealed an even more concerning reality. Vindman accused the Pentagon of being involved in a broader issue that risked national security. He raised the question of a pause in offensive cyber operations earlier that year, suggesting that such an action had left the country vulnerable. Despite reports and whispers about this pause, the Secretary of Defense denied its occurrence, creating a rift between public statements and private reality. Vindman pushed further, determined to unearth the truth and hold the administration accountable for any lapses in operational readiness. While the exchange between Vindman and the Secretary of Defense was undeniably dramatic, it brought to the forefront important questions about transparency, accountability, and the importance of maintaining national security at the highest levels. The congressman, though facing his own controversies, appeared unwavering in his commitment to ensuring that those in power were held responsible for their actions. The underlying issues raised by Vindman extended far beyond a single mission or individual. They pointed to a deeper, systemic concern about how military information is managed, how leaders are held accountable, and how such lapses in security are addressed. The confrontation in the hearing room wasn't just about a single mistake, but rather a broader, more significant conversation about the trust the American public places in its military leadership and the individuals who are entrusted with protecting national security. As the congressional hearing continued, the tone shifted from personal accountability to broader concerns about the state of national security and military preparedness. Congressman Alexander Vindman, having already challenged the Secretary of Defense over the issue of classified information leaks, turned his attention to the U.S. military's readiness in the face of growing threats. Specifically, he raised concerns about the rising power of China and the U.S.'s ability to respond to potential conflict in the Pacific. The conversation quickly focused on the U.S. Navy's timeline for readiness to fight a war with China, a rising global power with an expanding military. Vindman asked the secretary to confirm the year the Navy had set as its target for being prepared for such a conflict. The secretary's response, although careful, pointed to 2027 as the target year for readiness. This answer, however, deeply concerned Vindman. He expresses fear that waiting until 2027 to reach full readiness would be too late. China already had the largest navy in the world, with 370 warships compared to the US Navy's 296. This discrepancy was expected to widen further, with projections suggesting that China could field 435 warships by 2030. In Vindman's eyes, waiting another 6 years to reach full combat readiness would leave the US at a significant disadvantage in the Pacific. Vindman's concerns were not limited to naval strength. He also focused on the strategic vulnerabilities in NATO and Europe. The conversation turned to the Salky Gap, a crucial geographic corridor in Eastern Europe that connects Belarus to Russian-controlled territories. This gap is considered a critical weakness for NATO, as it could sever the Baltic states from the rest of the alliance, giving Russia a strategic advantage. Vindman asked the secretary if he could identify this vulnerability, only to receive a hesitant response. The secretary failed to immediately recall the significance of the Salky Gap, which raised serious concerns about the Pentagon's awareness of critical flashpoints in Europe. Vindman's point was clear. If military leadership was unaware of such a key strategic location, it undermined confidence in the overall readiness and effectiveness of the US military strategic planning. The discussion shifted to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, where drone warfare had become a significant issue. Vindman asked the secretary what percentage of Ukrainian casualties were now caused by FPV, first-person view, drones. The answer, over 70%, highlighted the growing importance of drones in modern combat. However, when Vindman asked which branch of the US military had developed doctrine or procurement systems to integrate these drones into their strategies, the answer was troubling: none. Despite the increasing use of drones in warfare, the US military had not yet adapted its strategies or procurement systems to effectively incorporate them. This failure to acknowledge and prepare for the future of drone warfare was a significant oversight and raised concerns about the US's ability to stay ahead of evolving threats. As the hearing continued, Vindman recounted a conversation he had with the mother of an F-18 pilot who had been involved in a classified mission over the Red Sea. The mother expressed her concerns that the Secretary of Defense had leaked classified details of the mission in a private chat, details that even her son was not allowed to share with her. She wanted an apology for the risk her son had been exposed to, and Vindman seized on this issue, asking the secretary directly whether he owed her an apology. The secretary, while praising the mission's success, refused to apologize, asserting that the mission had been a success and that the pilots involved had done great work. Vindman pressed further, pointing out that even lower-ranking soldiers are held to a higher standard when it comes to safeguarding classified information. The secretary's refusal to take responsibility for his actions was a critical moment in the hearing. In a powerful conclusion to the exchange, Vindman suggested that the Secretary of Defense should resign. This was not a call for resignation out of personal vendetta, but rather a demand for accountability. Vindman argued that if junior officers are held to strict standards, so too must those at the highest levels of command. He emphasized that the US military's success and integrity depend on leaders who are willing to accept responsibility for their mistakes. This call for resignation, while dramatic, underscored the larger issue of leadership within the military and the need for accountability at all levels.